This is the iPhone 4S, Apple's flagship phone from the year 2011. The first iPhone with the natural language voice assistant Siri, a feature that paved the way for a whole plethora of voice assistants on various platforms in years to come. The 4S is a phone that is many years out of date. However, a few weeks back I posted something on Reddit regarding older iPhones, and someone replied saying that they still use their iPhone 4S even today. He said that he barely uses social media and only uses it for calls and messages as well as listening to music. This intrigued me enough to try it out myself. I turned off my iPhone 11 for 2 days and tried to live with this iPhone 4S, which I usually use as my alarm clock. In this video, I talk about my experience with the 4S and if it caters to even my most basic requirements in 2020. Firstly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you like what you see, and now let's jump right in. Firstly, I'll be going over each individual aspect of the phone and talk about how it affected my experience in general. Now let's have a quick go around of the phone itself. The phone is constructed mainly of glass at the front and back with a stainless steel frame, a design which was introduced with the iPhone 4, which popularized the use of these materials over plastic. The phone feels extremely premium in the hand, and its small form factor makes one-handed use a breeze to do. The phone has large bezels with a screen-to-body ratio of about 54% compared to more modern smartphones which have a ratio of about 70% and above. The power button is located at the top as opposed to modern iPhones which have it on the right side. Below, we have a large 30-pin charge port and data connector, and it also features the classic physical home button. The display on the 4S is a 3.5-inch 640 by 960 IPS LCD capacitive touchscreen with a pixel density of 330 pixels per inch. It's the same display which was on the iPhone 4, which was the world's first phone display with a pixel density over 300 pixels per inch. This display feels minuscule in modern standards, especially when switching from an iPhone 11. The display on the 4S, however, is still more than usable if one can ignore the fact that it's really small. It has the same pixel density as the iPhone 11 and has great viewing angles. Its color accuracy is also pretty decent and somewhat towards the brighter side. Overall, a perfectly usable display. Powering the 4S is Apple's A5 dual-core processor, the first dual-core chip on any iPhone. It was based on a 45nm process and was clocked in at 1 GHz. The 4S also featured a PowerVR graphics processor. The 4S was offered in 4 storage options being 18, 62, 32 and 64 gigs, and they all had 512 megs of RAM. These specs are even less impressive than what one would find on a sub $100 phone today. However, they work decently even today thanks to Apple's vertical integration between hardware and software. These specs were initially supporting iOS 5, which the phone was released with, until its final update, which was iOS 9.3.5. Opening system apps is decently fast and they work without an issue, just slower than they once did. There are only a select few apps that would still work on iOS 9.3.5, and most of them are usually older versions of the app which the App Store prompts you to download. Some apps such as Instagram are downright no longer supported and will not work on the 4S at all. Being a person who uses Instagram a lot, I found this quite hard to get by. The Safari browser is almost impossible to use at times, as heavier web pages take long to load or just don't load at all. This also includes Apple's own website, which loads in a jumbled mess of icons. This older version of the Facebook app works, but is very slow and sometimes gets stuck. Heavier streaming apps like Twitch work decently, but sometimes lag during a stream. Games like Temple Run work well, however, take about half a minute to load. More heavier 3D titles are mostly not supported on 9.3.5, and if they do, usually never get past the loading screen. Multitasking works fine, however most apps will have to be reloaded as they are no longer well optimized for iOS 9 and the mere 512 megs of RAM is not sufficient enough. Performance-wise, the phone is still good for basic tasks, but medium to heavy usage is almost impossible. The iPhone 4S features an 8-megapixel single-lens f2.4 autofocus camera and a single LED flash. with video recording up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. The front-facing camera is a simple VGA camera, and here are some photo and video samples from the rear camera. For being 9 years old, the camera is not half bad. It still takes decently clear images which are more true to life in terms of color, even beating out some budget smartphone cameras from modern times. The phone's front-facing camera is what you'd expect from any VGA camera. As for additional features, the 4S has a 3.5mm headphone jack, which I was happy to return to for the 2 days that I used it. A bit of nostalgia with wires hanging off both ears. As mentioned earlier, the iPhone 4S was the first iPhone with Siri, a feature that I use a whole lot on my iPhone 11. However, the iOS 9 version of Siri is not as functional as its more modern iterations and struggles with certain tasks. iPhone 4S has a 1432 mAh lithium polymer battery that, at this age, does not even last half a day. The guy on Reddit said that he had not changed its original battery, and I cannot imagine how he manages, as using the original battery in 2020 is almost impossible if you wish to depend on the phone for the entire day. The battery is charged using Apple's older 30-pin cable. So as a final conclusion, I'd like to say that the dude on Reddit was somewhat right in his own way. It's a perfectly usable phone, provided that you only require it to call, text, and listen to music. But for power users like myself, and most of us tech nerds out there, the iPhone 4S is nothing but a piece of smartphone history. Apart from the fact that it still makes a great alarm clock and wakes me up every morning without fail. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like this video and check out my channel, and if you like what you see, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.